Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from for Education, and today I'm here with Yani. Thank you very much, Yani. And today I have the pleasure, the honor to talk about Happy Hearts Indonesia. So, Yani, can you introduce a bit yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. First of all, I'd like to thank you to invite Happy Hearts Indonesia to be part of this program. When we received the email, we are quite surprised that, Justice for Education basically a bit far from
Yeah,
where
yeah.
we operate now. We are in Indonesia. I don't know if you are familiar with Indonesia. I
Um,
think it's one it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest archipelago in the world. We are located in Southeast Asia. And yeah, we are an NGO based in Indonesia, located in Indonesia, Happy Hearts Indonesia, and I am the head of marketing and communications in Happy Hearts.
okay, thank you. So, first of all, I would like to know which are the reasons that led to the beginning of Appearance Indonesia.
Happy Hearts Indonesia. Okay.
Yeah.
I think actually it was just last month that I think you understand one of the biggest disaster in the entire world was the tsunami. You know about this,
Yes.
which hit Indonesia.
Yeah.
Indonesia was one of the most impacted country by the tsunami, but our founder, actually, I don't know if you know her, but she's a very popular supermodel, Petra Nemkova. She was one of the victim of the tsunami in 2004. She was actually on holiday at that time in Thailand. It was not in Indonesia, it was in Thailand, but the country was also hit by the tsunami, and she miraculously survived the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami. And this life altering experience has changed her forever. And since then, she decided that she wants to dedicate, by creating program to and a mission to help children who survive the natural disasters. Actually, it was then. A year after, in 2005, Petra founded Happy Hearts Fund. It's dedicated to rebuilding safe and resilient schools in areas affected by such, disaster. Happy Hearts entered Indonesia in 2006, actually,
Okay.
because at the time it was also another devastating earthquake in Indonesia. It was in the area called Yogyakarta. I don't know if you maybe you can look it up afterwards, but it
Yeah.
was in Jakarta in 2006, and that's when Happy Hearts entered Indonesia, and we rebuilt around 30 schools. But afterwards, a few years after, starting in 2013, actually, so it was like 12 years ago, we decided to be, registered in Indonesia and launched as Happy Hearts Indonesia as an NGO registered in Indonesia. So we've become a local entity since 2013, which was around 12 years ago. But the story of Happy Hearts to Indonesia from the beginning, the founder impacted by the tsunami, and then 2004, and then 2006 came to Indonesia to rebuild schools impacted by another earthquake, another natural disaster. But then only by 2013 that we've decided to be Happy Hearts Indonesia.
Okay. I
I
find
hope
it
that.
really interesting. I find it really interesting because it started in another country, then came to Indonesia, and
Mm,
there is the common willingness of helping children. So there is the same mission.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and I've seen that you, as you said, you reconstruct schools which are earthquake resistance.
At the
Which
beginning,
are,
yeah.
oh, yeah,
Mm,
so you help in generally with poverty, with water to
yeah,
water access,
yeah.
but have been some difficulties in the start, in the beginning, and or now too. And how do you overcome these difficulties?
Okay, so I mentioned before the initiative was started because of the natural disasters, right? But then I think since 2013, I mean, knock woods, we don't want a lot of disaster happenings, and I think Happy Heart still wants to stay on its mission to rebuild schools, to create access, the quality educations for childrens. And we didn't just rebuild schools out of impacted by the natural disasters, but we also started to rebuild schools in underprivileged area.
Okay.
For poverty out of not just in Yogyakarta, but also in other area. And starting 2013 and 2017, we wanted to focus more on those marginalized area by under we call them underprivileged, the area that is not really touched by the development of the countries.
Yes.
So starting 2017, we focus more on one of the provinces in Indonesia. We call them in NTT, Nusa Tenggara Timur, in the eastern of Indonesia, where unfortunately it was the second poorest region in Indonesia. So just to give you a little bit more of the context, we don't just rebuild schools that is impacted by the natural disaster, but we also rebuild schools, especially the how do you call the when the condition of the school is just too devastating.
Yes.
We help to we improve, we renovate the schools. We call them. We rebuild the schools to give a quality, an access to educations,
Yes.
not just but we want to give them a quality building, a quality infrastructure, which is adequate for the children to go to schools and to learn, not just a space or where they just sit and then try to absorb whatever the teachers teach them that day. So we try to improve the condition of the schools, not just impacted by natural disasters, but also on this remote and underprivileged area. Now you ask, is there any challenges?
Yes.
Well, as I mentioned before, Indonesia is one of the biggest archipelago in the world, if not the biggest, and we consist of around 17,000 islands.
Wow.
So, and the region where we focus the most in the eastern of Indonesia, the access is not easy.
Okay.
So one of the challenges is actually the logistic, because we rebuilt the schools. Yeah, so the logistic side of it is quite of the challenge. Why? Because I think starting 2 years ago in 2023, we rebuilt schools, but not just the by brick and mortar, but we start a new program where we rebuild schools using recycled plastic waste.
Okay.
So we have a partner we call Block Solutions. They produce eco blocks, so they produce bricks out of recycled plastic waste. Because unfortunately, Indonesia is one of the biggest producer of plastic waste also in the world. So we try to, to create impact not just through education, but we also want to create impact for the environment.
Yes.
So starting 2 years ago, we start to rebuild schools made of recycled plastic waste. And then the location of this factory of this eco blocks is also in one of the island in Indonesia, in Lombok, in West Nusa Tenggara. So our focus is in East Nusa Tenggara, but the location of the factory is in the west of Nusa Tenggara. So if you ask what is the challenge, what is the most, the most challenging part is actually on how to transport those blocks school to those remote area in the eastern of Indonesia. But just to give you a bit of a context, we don't just focus on. We'd like to rebuild more and more schools in East Nusa Tenggara. As I've mentioned before, it's one of the poorest region in Indonesia. But actually, as an NGO, we are, we have partners, right? We have donors. We have companies with their CSR program, and they help us. To rebuild those schools, and sometimes they would ask and they have requests also to rebuild schools out of East Nusa Tenggara. We also rebuild schools in Java. We also rebuild schools in other area based on the request of the corporate donors or our other foundation donors, because sometimes they have a special request and they already know which schools that they want us to rebuild. And just to give you another information also, we don't just rebuild schools, but we accompany them 3 years afterwards to make sure that the schools will sustain. So we
Okay.
empower the communities, we monitor, we do monitoring, and so for the next 3 years, we can give report also to our partners, those who help us to rebuild schools, and then afterwards we hope that the school will be able to sustain themselves.
Okay, so your activities very spread. You act in many places at the same time,
Yeah.
depending on the necessities.
Yeah, we'd like to focus more, like I mentioned, focus on East Nusa Tenggara. But I think if you look at our website, you have
Yes.
a map of Indonesia, and you can tell that, and you can see that up until now we've rebuilt around more than 370 schools across the country. So mostly still in Java, because Java is the one of the island with the most population in Indonesia. But we'd like to touch more and more those remote area in the east of Indonesia.
Okay, okay. And how the NGO acts, operates in a daily basis?
All right. So, as I've mentioned before, we accompany the schools, 3 years after the reconstruction. So we do have a field officer in the area where we operate. But then again, like I mentioned to you, we rebuild schools. We don't build schools, but we rebuild schools. So the schools already have their own foundation, their own system, right? So what we do is we intervene by rebuilding the schools, and we accompany them for 3 years to make sure that they will be independent and they can sustain themselves. So in those areas, we have what we call the field officer. They are the one who will monitor. They are the one who will give us report for the 3 years to our office, and our office is actually in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. And we have three teams in our head office. Of course, our CEO and myself is in the marketing and communication team. We communicate. Like what we do now. Actually, we also create stories. We also, maintain our website or social media, which are very important currently, because in Indonesia we are on social media, the media relations and all that. And then also we do have the development team. Those are the one who work with approach our corporate partners, and then in the development team, we also have the individual giving, because we do have individual donors as well who wants to participate. And then we create a program with them, volunteering work, and then, do those kind of programs. And then we have also our program and impact team. Those are the core of our organization, because they are the one who maintain the program, who create the program, and then the impact team is to make sure that the impact is there and aligned with our vision and mission as an organization.
Thank you.
Now, I
Thank you
hope
very much.
that explains the
Yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And one thing I think is really important to know and to ask is because in other countries we don't know a lot about Indonesia and about the educational system. What do you think
Mm.
people should know about how the educational system works in Indonesia?
Yeah, you've asked me about the challenge of um, how we execute our programs and all that, and I've mentioned to you that the challenge is because of the logistic matter in Indonesia, and it's still quite a problem, because archipelago is not the same as a continent, right? The access
Yeah.
is not the same, especially in the further region. From where we are now, the capital is in the island of Java. So there is still a big discrepancy between the cities and the rural area, for example. So I can give you just one example of a data. Only 20 to 0.4% complete high school in rural area compared to almost 50% in urban areas, for example. So, like I mentioned, our country has some, we do have some challenges in terms of logistic and some discrepancy of the rural and urban area as well. And unfortunately, I can give you another data also. In 2023, damaged classroom in Indonesian public schools is increased by 26%, which is around 250,000 units of damaged classrooms. So that's where we are, the reason why we are still here. The vision is to, I mean, the government is doing a lot of things about it also, but as an NGO, we try to shorten the gap,
Yeah.
right? And hopefully one day we don't even have to be here.
Yeah, but at the moment you're making a big impact in the educational system, so it's really important, and we really appreciate your activity and your presence in the territory.
Well, the 273 schools, I mean, if you compare on the number of schools in Indonesia, may not be that big, but we try. We try.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Um,
Mhm.
and like this amount of schools is better than zero. So
Yeah, the 12 year in the past 12 years is 373 schools. Well, if you compare it to the numbers of schools in Indonesia, it's still a lot of work, and I think government also do a lot of job on that one as well. But yeah, we try as much as possible with our partners and whatever means that we have to shorten the
okay.
the gap.
And we talked about what you have done until now. But what about the future? Which are the future goals of Happy Hearts Indonesia?
All right, so our mission is to really create a quality, an access, to quality education by rebuilding schools. But we also rebuild libraries because we believe schools need libraries. And I think last year we just launched a new program as well, is the water access. Why? Because we see the water access, especially in the school ecosystem, is still in great needs in certain area, especially in the eastern of Indonesia, like I mentioned to you, because the climate there is a bit different than us here in Java. It's very dry there, and the rainy season is not as much as us here in Java. So one of the program that we just launched last year is the water access program, and I think this year we will see more and more projects. Last year we've rebuilt around 8 water access in 8 schools, and I think we want to see more water access projects in the area where we operate in our schools, for example. And because water access doesn't just for the students or for the school communities, but also in the communities around the schools, they can also have the benefit of having clean water access. But when you say what's in the future, as we really want to create, quality access to quality education, because if you visit some areas and if you see the condition of the schools, it's quite devastating. Whatever is quite a basic needs for us in the urban area, but in some area it's still quite a privilege. So we want to make sure that this kind of gap and it's it's getting closer and closer, and hopefully we don't have to be here because it's already
Yeah,
there.
the final hope is that this will not more be needed. But let's see.
Yeah,
Let's see when.
that's until now we still have
Yeah,
works to do. Mhm.
unfortunately, you are here and you are doing this amazing work. You
Mm.
do this using donations, but
Yes.
which are other ways of contributing to this mission?
All right, so we have a lot of partners, corporate partners in foundation, international foundation partners, local foundation partners. We do have individual donors as well, but we also open for volunteers because when we rebuild schools, it's good that people really see what we do. And then the most interesting part is when we rebuild schools using recycled plastic waste. I don't know, but if you look at our website or our social media, you will see that it looks like a Lego, the adult Lego. And it's interesting to invite our individual volunteer, and they will see how it is. And I think last year we organized one in one of the island, and some of the participants were so excited to see that actually they can really do something, and help us to rebuild schools. And it's not just by rebuild the construction work, but they can also help us, to play with the children, to teach them about waste management, to teach them early on how to sort the waste between organic or plastic waste, those kind of things. And yeah, those are the things that everyone can participate, although it doesn't happen every day because we need to do it by group. But if
Okay.
you want to participate as an individual, you are more than welcome to be our individual donor as well. Yeah.
I invite everyone to try to do this activity to help because this is really enriching. It's
Mhm.
transformative. You help, and at the same time, you receive back something. You change the
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, you give back, and then in the same time you will get the experience of a lifetime to really
Yeah,
touch the life of someone and to really create an impact. And then the impact will really last. You don't know, because when you were talking about schools, is different students every year. And like we mentioned, our program usually lasts 3 years, but the school will keep themselves, for many many years to come, with many many students to come. And then when we talk about the impact of education, is the only tool to that
yeah,
people can really rely on to get out of the cycle of poverty, for example, especially in those underprivileged area, those remote areas, far from the cities.
yeah. A single action, a single change in the present, change everything in the
I mean,
future.
like you mentioned, maybe it's just, I mean, even for us, it's the 373 schools is not a lot, but it changed, already impacting more than 99,000
Yeah,
children, for example, and will still impacting more children. So whatever it is that you do individually, if you want to make an impact, there is always a way for you to do something. And then when you give back, you actually receive a lot
yeah,
more.
yeah. So, Yani, as the last question, I would like to ask you, what's your personal message for this interview?
Well, again, Happy Hearts Indonesia, we focus on education, but education is the cornerstone of opportunity and equality. We want the world where everything is equal for every child, right? And every child has the right for education. So I'd like to invite everyone to not just Happy Hearts, but also to create this kind of impact, for the better, for everyone, for every child.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, for your words, and for making us, for like giving us the opportunity to know more about what you do and your impact.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And thank you everyone for having watched this interview, and we will meet in the next one. Bye.
Bye.